Hello my lovelies, today I'll be speed painting a commission I did for a friend of mine. My friend wanted her commission to have a scene from Howl's Moving Castle. Here's an example. Disclaimer though is I don't own any of these characters or the picture. These characters belong to the rightful owner, Studio Ghibli. This is just my own recreation of that scene using my own art style. So to start, I was trying to work on Howl's face, but I ended up struggling with that a lot. I did make a lot of very rough sketches at first just to try to get the proportions right, and I still, oh man, it was quite a struggle. I'm not usually used to making the faces like this. I like to make my faces a little bit more straight at you than to the side or like at a certain angle. So this was kind of a good practice to just get into, but it didn't work out in the end. I didn't know how to orientate the head properly until now, and many a weeks later. So I'm just trying to put the face feathers on him. Those are pretty easy, not too much to say about it, but I wanted this piece to be romantic, very impactful. So, like I was saying, I wanted this piece to be very romantic. I wanted it to have that very I miss you sort of feeling to it. But we're coming up here to one of my favorite parts, which is Sophie's braid. I wanted it to be very flowy. I wanted it to be like super whoosh, and it really draws your eye from the tip of the braid all the way up to Howl's face, and then I move on to repositioning the face and trying to figure out just how his face is after many tries, even off camera. So yeah, so I'm just over here just trying to get his nose right, get his facial structures right based off of the reference, because I noticed that I had a few things that were wrong with him. So yeah, just going to get through this and then move on to the actual feathers. So I'm just trying to readjust Sophie's eye. I keep noticing that it's like freaking huge. I'm going back and forth trying to get this sketch just right, because I have a tendency of just overcomplicating things and not being able to make a cohesive composition. So, and I also overthink it way too much. So I'm over here trying to do an arm on him, because I'm like, okay, is she standing on her tippy toes? If he's like lifting her up, like what the heck's going on with this? And I'm like, oh wait, no, I probably shouldn't do that. And then I decided, okay, I should probably put a gradient in, try to get this right. And then I noticed that something might have been wrong with her face, and I'm like, nope, that's just the ridge of her nose. Just trying to work on Sophie's entirety. I noticed that she was too large, then she was too small, and then she was too high, and then she was too low. Just a lot of edits to this piece, as far as I can tell. And then I noticed that his neck was like super long, so I decided to put in some cinders, trying to get an idea of what I want the final thing to look like. And I thought that this looked cool, but it's not what it's going to look like in the end. And then I took some with the color pick tool to find Howl's color and put in the base colors in. And now I'm just working on the refined sketch, getting everything cleaner, getting an idea of what goes where. I normally skip this step in my past methods simply because I saw no point to it, because I was just going to ink it anyway. So when I get onto the inking phase, it's a lot easier for me to tell, like, okay, that is a feather and that's part of the ear. Okay, that's part of the eye and not part of the finger, you know? So I'm just trying to define the feathers in this layer as well. I very much struggle with feathers. Wings are not my strong suit. I've tried to practice them. I still need a little bit more practice for it. Still trying to get the details that I want in them, because I want them to be soft. I don't want them to be hard and defined like what you see on the screen. But I found a way that you can get an idea of the scale of your wings. There are a few tutorials online that you can find that are pretty accessible, and it's super easy. You just got to section them out in 3 different sections depending on the kind of wing that you want. And the top section would go from small to large, which is kind of what you see here. I was trying to get do it a little bit more defined and just get a better idea of what's there and what's not. I do know that later on I do reposition. Wow, my English is great today. The wing, because I looked at the reference again, and he's sort of like encasing her inside of his wings. And if you look at references of wings, they fold in a little bit. So I decided to put that there instead of it just flaring out, because it looks a little bit more romantic if he's like trying to hold her and then his wings are there with him. Then now I'm just trying to work on Sophie. I already got her down. I'm like, girl, you good. So I'm just trying to get her proportions. Well, I already figured out her proportions. And then I tried to put a hand behind her, but I didn't like it. It looked kind of crappy. And this was the period where I did not know how to draw hands properly, so I always drew anime or manga hands, which is not ideal. And then I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna pull him down, pull her down, and then it's just going to be half of his forearm. I'm not gonna bother with a hand. Screw that. So I feather up his forearm, I feather up his chest and other places. not the nether regions, goodness. So I'm just trying to reposition the wings, and I decided to redo that and redo his wings again for attempt number 2. And instead of flaring them out, I'm going to flare them in a little bit. Do the same process like I did before and just separate them into 3 separate sections, and it worked out a lot better. It definitely made it feel a little bit more enclosed. And then I tried to give Sophie a tear, but the long tears were not working out, so I decided to give her a short one. And now for the clothing folds, Sophie's hair and braids. Just trying to get her to look more of like those, I really just wanted her to look more like Taru Honda from Fruits Baskets, if any of you know what that is. I wanted to give her that Toro Honda classic look. And then I noticed that the braid there's no way that a braid would be able to go through his wings like that. So I opened up the wings a little bit and started erasing bits and pieces, trying to get where the overlap is, where it's not. On occasion, comparing it to the gradient that I have to see if it's to the right scale. Still working on Howl's feathers. I freaking work on his feathers forever. His hair feathers, trying to make sure that the lines are a good thickness. Trying to get his wing feathers to look like feathers and not blobs, which I have a bad tendency of doing. So yeah, just trying to get on through it, trying to get those bits and pieces in, make it a little bit more defined, having a larger idea of how big feathers work, which I guess technically there's not really big feathers, at least to human scale. I've seen a few illustrations of angels or winged individuals who have wings and stuff, and how they like are friggin' huge. So now we're going to go on to the next part, which is inking. I am not a fan of inking whatsoever. I'd rather just get it done and over with. But with this piece, I try to be a little delicate. I try to be a little bit more conscious as to the softness and the hardness of the ink weight. And what I normally use for that is like a sketch brush for it, which I probably shouldn't be using. But I tried using fine liners and I like fine line brushes, and I can't do the 1 pixel because if I try to enlarge it or anything like that, it gets like super pixelaty, and I don't like that whatsoever. So I just do a 3 pixel tiny little sketch brush just in the color in the color black. Guys, my English is great. So I'm just trying to ink up Howl's feathers, trying to get them looking fierce. I'm not used to saying that word. So yeah, and then once I finish up with the inking, it should be fairly decent. I mean, I try very hard with inking. Even though I hate it so much, I still try very hard, and it amazes me how people can like very delicately put together inking that's like a minute molecules like very tiny details that they can put in. I'm, like I said, I'm not one of those people. I've also noticed that I've been struggling with ears a lot lately. Lately. I am on a roll, guys. So ears, wings, face orientations, there's just a lot of proportionate sort of stuff that I need to work on, that I am trying to work on for all this time that we are all in like quarantine. Trying to add a couple of details to the bow, to the braid. There is a way, if you struggle with braids, I find it to be a lot easier to just kind of make like a semi-heart, where I just put like curves in a certain direction and then just put a V on the inside. I just found that to be a little bit easier. I know there's a way where you can just make hearts all the way down. There's a few tutorials on how to do that, but you guys can look it up on your own time if you're interested. So, and then just trying to deal with Howl's wings once again. I spent several days on his wings and I'm still petrified from it, because I'm like, oh my god, I did that and it looks pretty for once. Unlike Vampy's Gold or Umber artworks that I did, where their wings look like I chopped off bits and pieces of a bird and stuck it with tape on their wings, and that's It's not good. So I need to practice a little more with these. I've attempted to be a little bit more gentle when it comes to making long lines. Just having to, and I actually learned this from a tutorial that I watched, that it's better if you do long lines than you having to do tiny itty bitty lines all the way until you get to the bottom, because then it just looks cleaner, it looks nicer, just as you can see. And I already put down the base colors. I wanted to save time for this video, and it still ended up about, 30 minutes long or something like that. And I just wanted it to be a lot shorter than my previous videos. I want my speed paints to go a little bit more faster. I've noticed that some other speed paint YouTubers like to make them at least 20 minutes to 16 minutes. And even though I could try to do that with mine, it does not end up like that. It just speeds by super fast. So on here, I'm just trying to shade out Howl, shade out Sophie. I did take a pic of these, and in the end, I'm going to show a showcase from sketch to final product, but it's only 3 stages. I'm not gonna like make you guys have to sit through and watch this entire process over again, only in a shorter form. So yeah, just trying to put in some details and shading on the feathers. I've found different ways of shading, and this is just one of the ways that I personally like to shade. Well, I guess I wouldn't really say that I like it. It makes it look nicer. I've also been graced with the discovery of the lasso tool. In my previous program that I used to paint in, Paint Tool Sci, I didn't really have that, or at least I never utilized it, and I feel so bad because it's so much easier. And I always hated Photoshop for not having like an automatic fill like Paint Tool Sci does. So I shaded the inside of the wing a certain way to have the illusion that it is encasing her. So that's why it's a bit darker on the inside than it is on the outside. And also because it would make a lot of more realistic sense if the outside were a bit lighter than the inside, simply because of where the light is placed. And trying to put details on these feathers, man, it's like so tedious, so annoying. I even put details on the inner ones, even though I really didn't want to. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of feathers, so I try to avoid any sort of like ultra detailing, because I don't like sitting here in my office chair for like hours and hours just trying to make sure that this one feather looks super realistic. Yeah, I'm not one of those artists. I like it where it's like, oh, you squint at it and you get the idea. Woo! Congratulations! So, I'm also sorry for my mic here. I don't have a cover thingy on it, so you guys can hear everything around me. So if I so much as sneeze or something, you guys would hear it, or if I clapped on the other side of the room, you guys would hear it. And now finally I am putting in the blue backlight, or the side light. I saw in the movie that they had that, so I'm just trying to add it in, highlighting the feathers from the outside and the inside, and then I gave it an overlay and I put the opacity down a little bit. And now it is time for the main light, which is a red light for the fire. If you guys haven't seen this movie, I highly suggest that you do. It's one of my personal favorites. So I was trying to make an effect on his arm there, and it just wasn't really working out. It looked more like he had like some sort of, like he's a spotted bird, but not really. And then I'm just trying to clean up little places to make sure that everything is all together and it's not like, what is the word? It's not like it's, oh man, I'm totally forgetting it. But anyway, so I'm just trying to shade his face, make it a little bit more like he's inside of, he's got that mop head version of feathers. So yeah, and that turned out pretty good. And I make a few adjustments in the colors, trying to get it to look nice. Really, all of this is just trying to make it look nice. Not the greatest with color, but when I have these different adjustment layers and adjustment at my disposal, I utilize the crap out of it. Trying to add details to his eyes, trying to make it seem like it's very intentful, because in the movie it's not so the eyes aren't like my usual eyes. I usually have an issue with that, so I did it the Ghibli way. And now I'm just trying to add a shadow to Sophie's hair. I wanted it to be like there's a under light there, and it's illuminating. I also changed the color of that, added a little bit of bluish purple to highlight the secondary lighting, and then moved on to the primary lighting, which is the red lighting, whenever I get to it. So yeah, and still on Sophie's hair, because I'm a perfectionist and I need it to look good. And I shaded the braids to look more like braids. You guys can use this method if you'd like, just for your braids, just to make it a little bit easier. You don't have to be some pro about it, but it does make life a lot easier. And when you squint and it's like, oh, that's a braid, that's not like two hearts put together. Still working on her hair, man. I spend a lot of time just trying to detail the crap out of these two, and just trying to make it very vampy-esque. So okay, so now I'm trying to do the bow, trying to get her skin color looking okay, make it a little bit more warmer since it's warm versus cool in this illustration. I'm trying to add some shadows to her dress. I usually add 2 to 3 different layers of shadows, and then I compress it all into one, simply because it makes it seem like it's a lot more in-depth than if you just did one. And then I'm trying to do Howl's jewel. I wanted it I wanted it to be a lot more sparkly than what it actually was, but then I'm like, no, there's red in the back and you can still see it, but it's not like boom there, you know. It just is a break of color in the copious amounts of black, which is not a problem for someone like me, but there's still just a little bit more details to go through. Adding red speculars, trying to add a little bit more color to make it feel like saturated, trying to add warm colors to Sophie because it's a fire behind him. And now I'm moving on to the background, which I hated that beam. I hated that beam, but it was there in the scene and I'm like, no, this beam's gotta go. It is not doing it for me. It is making a very bad, it just looks bad. And then I tried to make a fire in the background. That didn't work. So I'm like, you know what? Screw this. I'm just going to go ahead and do my cinders, do the background in just a simple gradient, get it to work some way, somehow. The first pass of the cinders did not work too well. I go back again and I do them over, and I like the second pass a lot better than the first pass. And I also tried to add a drop shadow to the back as if they were like against a wall, but now I'm realizing, oh crap, that's not where the shadow should go, but it's okay. It was just a fun thing that I did for a friend. So and this is when I discovered the magical works that I found out about for the cinders. So it just makes, am I saying that word right? Cinders? Cinders. Cinders. And I decided to add small flecks of pure yellow. And I kept toying around with the background, trying to get it to look right. Adding a little bit more highlight and stuff. And then I decided to add a sort of like a vinaigrette. Vinaigrette. I want to say vinaigrette, but I'm pretty sure that's wrong. But no, a vignette. There we go. Yes? No, probably. So then I decided to put type on there. I was trying to figure out if I wanted to do it in text or in cursive. I decided to go with text because it looks better and it doesn't look like crap like my handwriting does on occasion. And it's just me placing things around, trying to get the perfect ratio of text to illustration. And then finally, I put my final signature and we're done! And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this piece, and thank you so much to my patrons. Thank you guys so much for being able to make this possible, man. It makes me super happy and super excited. But if you guys didn't know, I have a Patreon. I'll have a link in the description box below or in the end card. Please support me and this channel by becoming a patron, or you can find me on a multitude of different medias: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Deviantart, which will all be also linked below in the description. As always, thank you guys again, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.